second session on the EIT at the R&I Days. Thank you very much for coming and being interested in the EIT. So the session is about how the EIT drives, powers entrepreneurs and innovators. And we have a great set of speakers here, which represent innovators from the EIT community, representatives from the KICs, the knowledge and innovation communities themselves, as well as guests from the European Commission. And we will speak about the linkages between the EIT and the EIC. Very briefly, introduction on the EIT for those who do not know, and then we go straight into the session. So EIT by now has grown into Europe's largest innovation community and network, and I think it's fair to say after 10 years has changed the landscapes of research and innovation in Europe by adding a new tool that can help to overcome what has been seen, and I think still is the biggest challenge, overcoming fragmentation, helping research to come to the market in terms of concrete products and services. And what's special about the EIT is that we do that focused on societal challenges and in very, very close cooperation between business, research and education, what we call the knowledge triangle. Now, you will ask, did we succeed since the relatively humble beginnings in 2010, when EIT started with 3 knowledge and innovation communities in the areas of climate, sustainable energy and digitalization, and had initially 78 partners. It has grown now. It has grown into 8 knowledge and innovation communities. And I just last week received the plans for next year of the KICs, and they include over 2,500 participants. So EIT has grown, very open and very, very big partnership now. But that, of course, is only the glue that holds it together. What is the outcome is that by now over 800 product services has been put on the market. Over 2,000 startups have been supported, and you will see 2 of them in a minute telling you their story. And what is even maybe more important figure, that altogether they have attracted over 1.5 billion euros of external investment. So these are really special startups that have been helped either at the very early stage or being helped to grow, to accelerate their story. As of this summer, we also have a first unicorn, which has been supported by the EIT, is the company Northvolt from Sweden, which has the aim to produce the world's greenest batteries in gigafactories. And they've gone in 2.5 years with the help of EIT InnoEnergy into a company that's now valued well over 1 billion euros. So that has all been recognized by the European Commission, who just tabled the new strategy on the EIT this summer, proposing an increase of the budget and increase in the mandate. So that's what we want to talk about today, and I would like to do this in 3 parts. First, I'd like each of the speakers to tell their story and what has been achieved. Then I'd like to look together with Jean-David Malot from the European Commission into the cooperation with the EIC and how we can build together an even stronger European innovation ecosystem. And then I would like to open up for questions in the end for anything you want to know from me, from the speakers, and have a discussion. So that's a lot, as we have 6 speakers in 1 hour. And that's why I give straight away to Tavi Madeberg, who's the CEO from Skeleton Technologies, one of the success stories of the EIT. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much. My name is Tavi Madeberg. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Skeleton Technologies. We are the global technology leader in ultracapacitors. The company has been named a Bloomberg New Energy Pioneer, and 4th year in a row we are part of the Global Cleantech 100 list. If you look at the background of our success, then I think it's truly pan-European. We are a good mix of German engineering and an Estonian IT. Our manufacturing plant is located in Germany, but the software development and electronics engineering are in Estonia. Altogether, Skeleton has 120 employees, and this team has allowed us to sign leading customers from Škoda, Wrightbus, Sumitomo, up to European Space Agency. We have invested over 50 million euros of capital from leading venture capital and private equity players, but of course with the support of EIT InnoEnergy and lately European Investment Bank. Now, this all might sound great, But in the audience, you may have a question that what in the world is an alter capacitor? And since it's a technical question, I have relied for years on two of my best colleagues to explain the situation. So let us meet, firstly, Sir Mo Farah. Sir Mo Farah, famous marathon runner, he's like a battery. And a lithium-ion battery can run for 2 hours without any problems, but you would not put him on the sprint distance. Now, alter capacitors are like Usain Bolt. In a matter of 10 or 20 seconds, nobody has more power. So similar to Mo Farah not being a direct competitor of Usain Bolt, batteries and alter capacitors are not competing with each other. They are complementing each other, where you take the peak power from alter capacitor and then long-term energy from the battery. This allows to downsize the system and increase the lifetime by 2-fold. But of course, Skeleton Technologies, I will be honest here, we didn't invent the alter capacitor. And we have competitors in US, for example, Tesla, AVX, and in China, the Chinese National Railways. And the question could be asked, but why in the world does Europe need Skeleton Technologies? And the answer is quite simple. We do something which none of our competitors can. We have 4 times higher power density than our closest competitor, Tesla. And this technology has 13 main patent families and has been developed together with EIT InnoEnergy. And of course, one might ask that, okay, this is a nice slide from the Skeleton marketing department, but what is the reality? So in real life, 3 months ago, the US Navy ordered benchmarking testing of all the leading competitors globally. Skeleton, the US players, but also leading Asian companies. And even the US Navy had to admit that Skeleton clearly outperforms all competitors. But now, yes, we have the competitive advantage, but to be realistic about it, competitive advantage by itself does not provide any value. The question is, what do we do with that competitive advantage, and how do we help to save CO2 emissions? So last summer was very important for us. We won our first large-scale German automotive deal. And this created a snowball effect. At this point in time, we are in official tenders worth of over €500 million in the automotive industry. And to give you a flavor of the potential, when the largest customer who we are in close discussion with, not yet in tender phase, but business discussion, has an annual volume of over €1 billion. Now, this all sounds great, but where's a but? And it's a big but. New automotive deals take 3 years from signing to getting to the market. So something what we signed in July of this year will be in the market in 2022. And the question is that what do we do in between? And if you look at the big picture, when automotive industry is just the tip of an iceberg, but electrification is going on in buses, trams, electricity grids, and industrial solutions. So in Skeleton's case, we have won the tender with Škoda for the Mannheim city transportation system. Alter capacitors enable to reduce the energy amount by 30% and reduce the toll on the infrastructure. Secondly, when it comes to grid solutions, we always say we are not in the kilowatt hour, but megawatt second business. So the largest installation, what we have done this year, goes up to 10 megawatts. And we are all aware of the growth of e-commerce. And e-commerce puts a really strong toll on the fulfillment centers and automated warehouses. And here the advantage of alter capacitors is that you can charge them in a matter of seconds and run them around the clock with 15 years of lifetime. And now, this all might sound good, but we have to look at the history and what it took us to get here. Here you see a picture on the right-hand side of our manufacturing plant. On the left-hand side, You might think it's our first office, but it's incorrect. It's our first manufacturing line. We manufactured our first products back in 2009 and 2010 on that table. And these were early prototypes for European Space Agency. Luckily, they didn't go into orbit. But just to show that we started in 2009, and the development cycles in this industry are very long because we started with material development. And now we see that we have successfully entered the market and where the sales cycle takes another 3 years. And I can say that EIT InnoEnergy has played a pivotal role in many of the key challenges what Skeleton has faced. But let's be practical here. Let's look at what is the practical value of EIT InnoEnergy. I'm not talking about general nice words of support and community, but let's look at what has been actually done. Firstly, companies usually do not need money. We actually need customer orders. We need to build up the order book. And I can say that I mentioned earlier we signed the large German automotive deal this summer. This would not have been possible without EIT InnoEnergy. Because in the end of the day, it's not only about technology, it's about the credibility of the people in the company, but also who is backing the company. And currently we consider the EIT as part of our extended sales team. So what we see is that going forward, we plan to continue using that type of support. Secondly, companies, yet again, usually do not need money, but the industrial network. And I bring you an example that in summertime, we signed a 50 million euro contract with a US UPS manufacturer. And we were running out of time, and we had to do very specific high current testing. And through a partner who we found from the InnoEnergy network, we managed to carry out that testing in time and sign the customer. So it's clear that as a small company, we cannot develop all capabilities, and that's why we need partners. But I have said many times that usually it's not about the money, but sometimes it is. If you look at the early phases of Skeleton Technologies, when we faced the situation in 2015, 2016, we had a lot of customer interest, but we did not have the manufacturing capabilities. And with the support of EIT InnoEnergy, we managed to scale up to the first phase to gain the credibility of customers. And here is one important factor. If you support somebody, you have to have skin in the game. And what EIT InnoEnergy has done with this type of equity type investments has actually played a key role for the company. Because on one hand, if you make equity investments, then you really have the skin in the game and care how the company does. But on the other hand, this has allowed to unlock about 50 million euros of additional investments from private capital and European Investment Bank. Now, last but not least, in the end of the day, in Europe, we have a choice. We can be a consumer of technologies reducing CO2 emissions, or we can develop the industry to provide something competitive globally. And here it's so that all the research and development, policy, infrastructure, and funding will not help if you do not have the right business culture. And in Skeleton Technologies, we have one core value. And the core value is to get shit done. And I'm not referring to the quality here. I'm referring to the result orientation. And what I see in EIT is that EIT shares the same values in terms of going after results. So looking into the future, I firmly believe that Skeleton Technologies, together with EIT, will get shit done. Thank you very much.
If you want to take a seat.
Thank you.
And thanks for sharing your great story. I think it's a perfect moment to hear from Elena Bo, because she's the Innovation director of EIT InnoEnergy. So she's behind the stories such as Tavi's. And I would like you to share more of what EIT InnoEnergy has achieved by now in its first almost 10 years of activities.
Perfect.
The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Tavi. I mean, it's a pleasure, especially to talk now after Tavi, because I mean, he has done all the job that I should do, so it's great. Now, seriously speaking, I mean, I think that the main characters here are the entrepreneurs and these brave people that they, for me, it's like I'm really proud now of our startups, of all of the startups of the EIT, because we are changing a lot the mentality, in the sense that we thought that these stories could be happening only in Silicon Valley and in US and all these kind of ecosystems, and no, they are happening here and today. And that is something that all the Europeans we should be proud of. And a bit talking about what is special about the help, the support that we give to the entrepreneurs. It is true that Tavi has been mentioning, it's not only money. Well, the first thing is that money is needed, because especially in this kind of industry, which is capital intensive, and that is something that we have been supporting. But that would not be very special in comparison with other investors. The only thing is that what we can say is that we are a long-term investor. So Tavi is part of our family. I mean, even my kids know his story, okay? Because this is something that we keep a relationship with them. But there are other aspects that I think that are relevant to summarize, and one thing is that we have been able also to strengthen the team. I mean, in Skeleton, there are PhD students of our educational programs, and I think that this is a very specific characteristics of the EIT model, in the sense to interwoven also these startups with fresh graduates with a different mindset, and at the end, everybody knows that the success has to do with a team. But for me, the most relevant things are two aspects that I think that this is what the model of the EIT makes a great difference and a great advantage. One thing is that we help Tabian and his team, and we are helping other companies to scale up. I mean, to move from a nice startup that you have seen the picture in the Estonian first manufacturing, to suddenly have a real manufacturing in Germany, to go further. And this is something very complex, because in the market, when you say, I am a startup and I want to scale up, there are not many people who say, okay, I want to take the risk, what do you need? I mean, so this is something that we have been supporting. And we have been supporting it in a global way. So they are from Estonian. I think that you have an asset owner supporter, which is the Swedish Ocean. And then you have had the German team helping you in order to create these manufacturing sites. So this is one important thing, because there is no many solutions out there in the market. So we are fulfilling really a gap. And the last gap is the market. I mean, all of you you know the entrepreneurship world. You can be a great startup, but how do you say to one of these mammoths, an O&M, hey, I'm great. Yes, please give me an order. No way, they are not going to take you the phone. So this is something that we are helping to give access to the market and to give credibility, to give comfort. And it is a very hands-off approach. I mean, Tavi has at the disposal of a Skeleton, the German sales team. And this is people that they know their business, they are knocking at the door, and they are explaining what a Skeleton is doing, and then Tavi is proving that, yes, he's performing. So just an example, I mean, we have help as he mentioned, in the Skoda contract, and we have help, for instance, some days ago, it was our CEO in a telco with you, talking with Volvo trucks in the US. I mean, giving comfort to Volvo, saying, hey, they deliver. They are not just another startup. They are a young company, but they are robust and they are sustainable. So trust on them. So, and that is fantastic. I mean, when you can do that, I mean, it's a kind of long-term relationship. It's a hands-on approach. It's something that is a trusted ecosystem, and it's a tailored solution. It's what they need. And what is Skeleton giving to us is a lot, because it's giving us this kind of emotions, and giving us also examples that, yes, we can do it, something that it was very, very complicated at the very first beginning. And now we can see that young companies like Skeleton, I mean, we have already a unicorn. It was the first unicorn, especially in the energy, which is not an easy thing. Usually IT, they are very used, but we in energy not. So we are very happy with that. But in front of you, you have a company that they are just starting. I mean, what it is going to come is going to be really a big bang. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elena. I suggest you take the seat next to Tavi.
Thank you.
So I hope that gave you an idea of how EIT InnoEnergy supports its innovators, its entrepreneurs. Now I'd like to move to EIT Health, one of the second wave, as we call it, innovation communities from the EIT. So they started 5 years later than InnoEnergy, but already also have a lot to show. So I'll be very happy if Bieke van Gorp could come and present her story. She's the founder, co-founder and COO of Fibricheck, and also EIT Venture Award winner from last year. Bieke.
Hello. Hello everyone. My name is Bieke, and I'm one of the founders of Campium. And our roller coaster started end of 2014 when we started a company to develop mobile applications for a better health. Our first application is Fibricheck. And Fibricheck is a mobile application to detect for cardiac arrhythmias, just using smartphones, and since yesterday also smartwatches, where we have a clear focus to prevent strokes. The problem that we help to solve is rather big, as 1 in 4 develops dangerous cardiac arrhythmias in their lifetime, and they're often difficult to detect. Today, the reality is that in the European Union, 350,000 strokes are each year caused by undetected cardiac arrhythmias. So we do need innovative solutions to find them in time and prevent strokes from happening. The first 2 years in the market, we have been exclusively focused on getting the technology done and getting to regulatory. Because, of course, when you bring a medical device into the market, you need to be regulatory approved. And today we have been approved for Europe, so we do have our CE approval, but we also are approved for the United States, having our FDA approval. This was a challenging process, but actually it was nothing compared to finding business models in the healthcare market. The healthcare markets are so different from one country to another, but also, of course, are based on reimbursement. And yes, reimbursement is the end goal, but as a startup, you cannot count on reimbursement, as this takes years for innovative solutions. So that's why we needed to find alternative ways. And here EIT came in, because in different programs, together with them, we collaborated to find our pathway to the market. And there we used a stepwise approach, where we started first focusing on trust and credibility, not going immediately for a scalable model, and then building further and further to come to other business models. This has led today to a user base on which I'm very proud of, more than 150,000 people, and we multiplied this with 10 in the last year. Of course, to come to this point, you need time, but also money. And also here, EIT was a great help, not only in getting the story crisp, in getting the business plan crisp, but also in the access they provide to the different investor networks. And lastly, for us, what is very, very important is to get the word out. I mean, when you have a great product, this is fantastic, but people need to know you have a great product. And everybody who is in marketing does know that it's quite expensive to get to a pan-European reach and letting everybody know that we're out. So as well here, we can only be thankful for the network of EIT to bring on a pan-European level our message and provide us a lot of visibility. So just to invite you, if some of you is interested in detecting the cardiac arrhythmias, just download the app, take a free trial, and we help you further. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Beke. And I propose that now we turn to Kurt Höller, who is the Business Creation Director of EIT Health. So similar to Elena did for TAVI, he can give his perspective on how EIT Health supports great innovators and entrepreneurs like Beke. Kurt.
Thanks, Martin. Wow. Beke is one of those entrepreneurs that really make that job so beautiful that I'm able to do for EIT and for EIT Health, taking care on the entrepreneurs and taking care on the startups. Actually, if I want to talk about the achievements that we had so far, we started in 2016 with a program that we had developed up front. We got the EIT money. We ramped up everything. We asked our partners, we asked the startups, what do you need more? We further expanded our program. Then we consolidated the program again because we realized it's too complicated. Now, a few years later, 3.5 years later, I will tell you the story of the last 30 days. The last 30 days basically show exactly what we have achieved in the meantime. Almost 30 days ago, we opened our first pan-European crowdfunding platform. That's the first time that a citizen from all over Europe can invest in one of our startups that are on the platform wherever it is, no matter which country it is. Then we had an amazing meeting with the CEO of the European Investment Fund, Pierluigi Gilibert. He spent 2 days together with us. For 2 years, we had prepared that proposal. We had prepared our collaboration. And now we finally signed that memorandum of understanding that we have an investment tool where we can support startups that need Series B or Series C funding. We leverage investments from corporate investors from our network. EIT Health has more than 40 of the top global players that are active in Europe in our network. All the Siemens, Philips, GE, Roche, Sanofi, all those guys support entrepreneurs like Beke by getting in touch and buying her products, but also by investing with their investment arms. So that's the one ambition. On the other hand, we leverage all the private investments. I'm just coming, we are still, so the investment conference, it's one of the most important biotech investment conferences. We are one of the sponsors, and Leonard Sachs, he's the organizer and owner of that whole conference. He invited us, he wanted to see our startups. And we brought more than 30 of our startups to pitch at that conference because he really believes in the deal flow that we provide. Then we had that meeting with Nasdaq. Niklas Holmberg, he must be here somewhere in the room. He invited us to present our top startups in that event that was organized by EIT, a great opportunity. And why did they invite us? Not because they think it's just the most successful startups that we have in Europe. They also invited us because they can trust that through our network we identify the best ones. And that we really manage to bring the best startups through our network to that quality level. So Beke told a little bit about what the main challenges are. The main challenges are, of course, in the beginning. We support really early stage entrepreneurs, PhD, postdocs, scientists that have a great idea and that want to turn that great idea into a business. We help them to further develop their business plan by pitching to hundreds of our partners to really find the need, the medical need out there. But then, once they have gone through that stage, you have to talk about really regulatory and reimbursement. And Beke made it very clear. If you don't manage the regulatory affairs, you cannot be successful in the healthcare market. And regulatory things in Europe is not an easy one. In the US, you got the FDA approval as well. It's also not an easy one. You need support. You can't do that on your own. Second thing is the reimbursement. Beke talked about that. Think about the fragmented European reimbursement system. If you have a great product, someone has to pay for that. If you don't have the experts all over Europe that can tell you in each country how the reimbursement works, you won't get reimbursement. So you really have to provide that access to those experts. And that's what we at EIT Health really do. We have those experts all over Europe. And if one of our entrepreneurs wants to expand to a Scandinavian country, to a southern country, to an eastern country, we always can provide access to the right people that can tell you. And let me finish with a little story that I just experienced also a week ago. A French lady called me and told me, I'm working at the German-French Chamber of Commerce. And we will have a very important meeting. We want to identify the top startups from Germany and France in the area of digital health. And we want to invite them to one big event in France, in Paris, where we can explain them how to enter the French market and how to enter the German market. And we called a lot of the top startups that we identified by Googling, by seeing any kind of rankings, scorings, lists, and we called them. And all of them told us, sorry, on December 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, I will not be available. And we called them, yes, there's that EIT Health Summit in Paris, where all the EIT Health startups are invited. And then they wondered, what the hell is EIT Health? Why are all the startups going to that event when we invite them to ours? And now in the end, we agreed that German-French Chamber of Commerce will come to our summit just to host their event because they don't want to do it in parallel. That shows that we actually in our community have already a very big traction. Even if you would ask a citizen on the street, they wouldn't know us. But in that community, we have a perfect and a great traction. We have already 800 startups in our pipeline, in our portfolio, and I think that will really grow further. I'm really looking forward to see how Bieke will develop with FibriCheck and Quantium. I think we still have a few offers in our pipeline to support you. Very much looking forward to that success, and thanks for being here. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you very much, Kurt. If you take the seat next to Bieke, and I think those are really impressive achievements in the first 5 years and shows how far EIT Health has come since they pitched their idea in December 2014 in Budapest. That's a lot of things happening. Now I'd like to come to a third knowledge and innovation community. That's EIT Climate Kick, and it's my great honor to have Monika Weber-Fahr here, who is the chair of the supervisory board and will tell us where EIT Climate Kick has come in its first 10 years.
Thank you very much. And just to make it short, because I'm kind of the last in the line, and we've got a few more people to talk to and listen to all of you here. How do we measure our success is what you asked ourselves. So a couple of quick numbers. 1,500 entrepreneurs, 400 products that actually went to market, products and services. 400 partners, some of the best, the most innovative universities, cities, researchers, large firms, small firms. A leverage ratio of 1:8, about 4 billion euros mobilized either directly or indirectly. A lot of awards, recognitions. 43 of our entrepreneurs are in the 30 under 30 Forbes list. Just last year, there were 9 of the 30 came through the Climate Kick support. But is this what we're proud of? It's not. It is also the entrepreneurs that we work with, just in all the other EIT kicks. This is kind of the raison d'etre, and the way we're working is working with the entrepreneurs, helping to remove the stopgaps, the limitations that they experience in the environments in which they're working that are not very helpful. But what we're looking at on the Climate Kick side is taking a systemic approach, meaning if you have an innovation in a particular product area, how do you actually shift an entire city to use, say, the battery solution? How do you shift an entire sector? How do you actually make that transformation happen that goes beyond that individual product, but that needs many other places, things to fall in place, and not just to help that particular innovation to go to market, but also to make people change behaviors? So beyond the entrepreneurship work that we're doing in terms of climathons, climate launch pads, the accelerator programs, we've started building a ecosystem approach with our partners to come up with something that we call demand-led innovation. Not supply-led innovation, but demand-led innovation, in that we're building in, say, in a city, the demand that a city has, bring them in together right early on with the people that work on the innovation side for example, renewable energy. Now, example, because I'm here on my own, we didn't get to bring some of our entrepreneurs. Interesting examples from Insect. We've known them for 5 years. They came to us as somebody had an idea and a technology nearly fully developed about building proteins, edible proteins out of insects. And sounds odd, but mind you, in the old days, you can even read it in the Bible, people have lived for a long time very well with that. Now, these guys have not only just attracted one of the largest investments in the food space in a firm that early stage, 150 million, but more interestingly, we were able over the last couple of years helping them grow as entrepreneurs, but also link them into value chain approaches. Because you've got to ask yourself, when you have an innovation, where does it have the biggest impact? Do I go and talk to the hamburger fabrication? Do I go for pet food? What do I go for? And in working with some of the organizations that try to drive systemic change, we've been able to link them up with people who work in the aquaculture space. So the first set of pilots now is in foodstuff for aquaculture, which has a massive impact on climate change at the moment and on pollution in the oceans. So slightly different approach, motivated more by a bigger mission, a different set of tools in addition to the entrepreneurship support tools that EIT as an organization has helped us all develop so much, and where across the EIT kicks we've been able to build quite a substantial set of, if you will, IP on how to really work with entrepreneurs and support them so that growth can happen beyond an individual product. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Monica. If you want to take a seat. Yeah. So I think that gave you a pretty good impression, condensed on what EIT has achieved in its first 10 years. I think the worst thing we could do is to sort of rest on the laurels and say, yeah, that's very good, let's just keep doing that. That's not the ambition. The ambition is to do more and achieve more and create much more impact on the societal challenges and to have an even stronger research and innovation system in Europe. And that's where I would like to turn to Jean-David Malot and hear from him. He is the director for the Task Force for the European Innovation Council on how he sees the first achievements, learning of the EIC, and in particular, where do you see the potential for us to work together to make this even stronger, powerful innovation system? Jean-David.
Thank you, Martin, and congratulations, first of all, for what has been achieved by the EIT over the last 10 years. Really impressive. And congratulations also, first of all, for the entrepreneur, because you are the target. Not the only target of the EIT, but first of all, I would like to congratulate you. And also to the ones that are making the kick as powerful as they are. We have to say, on the side of the European Commission, that it's certainly one of the most impressive success that we had in the last 10 years regarding what was the initial objectives. You are talking about synergies. And I just would like to use the opportunity that Tavi is here to illustrate the synergy, because these synergies are already there. The key question is how to systemize them and to be even more efficient. But in fact, Tavi, who benefited from the remarkable value of InnoEnergy, has also benefited from an SME instrument support, the two phases, phase 1 and phase 2, the feasibility and the development of the scaling up of its technology in an industrial scale. And even more than this, because synergies should not be only between what is the EIC and the EIT, but also with other programs. And the loan that you got from the European Fund from Strategic Investment were indeed also in continuity to this and helped, in fact, I suppose, to attract, to make possible the deal with some of the automotive sector. I know a bit because we were in touch at that time via via Diego also in the InnoEnergy. So in fact, the synergies between what is carried out today within the KIC and other instruments already exist, but is not systemized. I mean, and I take also the example of Tavi because we know very well how hard it was, because we were nevertheless working on silos. I mean, at the end it was possible, but the time it took in order to create, for example, the agreement regarding the quasi-equity loan backed by the Commission in the context of FC was quite a challenge. But finally we made it. Now, what is the ambition of the European Innovation Council in this landscape is to add additional services to the ones that are already provided by the other actors of the ecosystem, and the EIT, and in particular the EIT KICs, are one of the key actors of the existing ecosystem. We are building, of course, on a number of activities that already exist, but we are shaping them a little bit differently in order to tackle two main barriers. The first one that was not really discussed this morning, but that where I believe that there are also some possibilities of synergies between the KIC and the EIC, is more in the early stage part, in the initiation and emergence of radical technology, where you are still very far from the market, where you still need a lot of investment in research and in technological development, something where we have also at EU level a very impressive success in the personality of a program such as Future Emerging Technology, but where we missed, in fact, this capacity to be able to identify the technologies that have the potential to be transferred into an innovative product. And this part is missing. There, I can see in some of the KICs some services that are provided that could be helpful in order to help some of the beneficiaries of the currently future emerging technology projects that are now called EIC Pathfinder product, but where on our side we will add another dimension in terms of support, which will be the role of EIC program managers. So people that are coming from the ground, that are not awful bureaucrats like me, that have a real connection with the people in the state-of-the-art of the technologies, that are able, therefore, to make the connection with other actors, that have a background also in terms of investment, because it's absolutely key at a certain moment of the development of the company. So this is one dimension on which there are possibilities of synergies. The research dimension within the KIC is certainly something where we have the potential to do much more than what we are doing for the time being. Now, on the downstream part, which is more relating to the means to be provided to a startup or a quite young SME in terms of potential to scale up rapidly in order to continue to develop its technology, but also to be able to pass some difficult moment because the return on investment are not necessarily there. There we have a big issue in Europe. Let's be clear, it's not because we have provided a number of indirect support to, in particular, the venture capital market, that we have solved the issue. We made some improvement, but we remain with the real issue. What has been done, for example, by Energy regarding this capacity to create the condition to attract some equity investor is absolutely remarkable. But sometimes, nevertheless, you need an anchor investor which will attract and provide additional trust to potential investors. And this is where came, in fact, the idea that the union itself could provide this kind of support on a temporary basis, not with the ambition to remain within the company, but to help the company to go through this kind of valley of death, and in the meantime to be able to attract other investors. So in order to, in one hand, to tackle this issue, and on the other hand, to attract other investors. And this is the idea of the EIC Accelerator, which is an expansion of the ESM instrument, in fact, because the ESM instrument was de-risking already a part of the investment with some grants, but was not necessarily providing the necessary means for the company to go a step beyond, especially for the ones that are deep tech oriented. For the ones that were less deep tech oriented or more mature, they were already able to attract private investors. I mean, when I looked at in the ESM instrument what we have achieved up to now, we have in reality achieved more investment from the private sector than what we have provided in terms of support. So 1.9 billion of grants from the Commission and beyond 3 billion euro of private investor coming up. But the target of deep tech startup is not really there, because by definition they are a bit earlier. And there we have to do something. And this is the reason why we would like to offer the possibility for startups that are emerging from the KICs to have a fast-track access to the EIT accelerator evaluation process in order to benefit from this possibility of a blended finance composed of a grant and an equity financing that could reach a maximum of 15 million euro in order to go through a number of stages of development. So not 15 million euro in one shot, in several steps, but with the possibility for the owner of the company to be more relaxed regarding the availability of budget, if indeed the various milestones of its vision are achieved and agreed. But allow me a last word on this. Money is absolutely necessary, but money is not sufficient. I mean, the scaling up of a company is only possible if it is taking place in an efficient ecosystem, which is in a certain way have a local dimension, it's one thing, but also which is composed of a number of specific services that are creating a community of services and support for the benefit of the owner of the company. And in this context, any services that are provided that are relating to business acceleration services, the capacity to meet with potential new clients, large corporates, to have the possibility also to benefit from an initiative coming from a public body, a region or a state which is ready to launch some innovative public procurement, these kind of things must be developed. And in this context, this is why we have decided in the pilot of the EIC to have a test of a cooperation with 1 or 2 KIC. I mean, only 1 or 2 because we have only 1.5 years for the pilot. But to systemize, in fact, this post-2020. So to have a cooperation with any KICs that are ready to do it with us post-2020. So we will start with InnoEnergy, not a big surprise for a number of reasons. And we will share some services, in fact, that are provided by the EIC Accelerator and by InnoEnergy for those that are benefiting from support on one or the other side. And we are exploring the possibility of a second one. In particular, my heart will go to climate. I have nothing against else. But we'll go to climate. Why? For obvious political reason. I mean, we have to do more in this green area. And in the discussion that we started with the KIC climate, we have already started to identify where we could do a number of things. And in addition to the funding, which is one thing, we would like in particular to focus on the innovation ecosystem and how we could do something that is fitting with the strategy that you have just developed, I mean, the renewed one. And where, in fact, we see a potential to explore. So one which is more already on concrete services, InnoEnergy, because it's already elaborated, and one which is more at a policy level, if I could say it this way, systemic change, and then which afterwards will turn into concrete action. Huh?
Thank you very much, Jean-David. If you could take a seat, you can just clear this chair. So if I try to simplify, probably oversimplify what you said, is that the EIC can help with the financing at the right moment, be it at the very early stage or at the later stage, bringing in at the exact moment the boost for the innovation. And the EIT can help to overcome the fragmentation and provide all the services around it that are helping the innovators to grow. And as was very nicely explained by Tavi's stories, by Bike's story. I think looking at the time, it would be best actually to open the floor for questions. If you have anything to ask to the EIT, to the innovators, to the innovation communities, to Jean-David about what has been achieved and how we can develop this cooperation, which already is ongoing in the pilot phase in the future. Are there any comments, questions? Please. Then Elena will certainly have a comment on the cooperation.
The audience a bit.
Icebreaker.
Now, I think that what it is happening these days in Europe is great, in the sense that we are becoming stronger on innovation. And I really am happy that Jan David has been able to explain this to the audience, because for two different reasons. One of the key problems that we have in Europe is that we are dry when our companies need to grow. They need indeed this anchor, because sometimes these companies, these companies are not bankable. So they can have great things. They can go to the commercial banks, but they are not going to fit. They're going to say, okay, you are very nice, but it doesn't fit. You have a lot of risk, so no money. And then these great opportunities died. And I think that building all this make us stronger, because we are complementary, and then we can go faster and much better. And I think that there is a reflection in terms a bit of the policy, and I think that I'm proud of being at this moment of time here, because, you know, Israel has been known like the startup nation. It has been one of the examples of an ecosystem. Israeli startups cannot grow in Israel. They go to US to grow. And what type of model do we want? Do we want a model that we make the effort, that we create these entrepreneurs, that we provide these mindsets, this education, and then we support in the difficult times, because at the very first beginning is really difficult, and then, goodbye, see you later, alligator, go to the US, and then you are brought there. I mean, that is a pity. And I think that this initiative is great, because we were really trying, saying, okay, I don't know if it is good that we arrived in this moment. So thank you.
Maybe first to let Monica react on that, because you mentioned very much the emerging cooperation between EIC and EIT Climate Kick. So it would be great to hear her view before you respond.
I think 3 points. First of all, I think just like yourself, I think the perspective of the directions of the IIC to be complementary to what the EIT has been built up is a wonderful thing, because there is a lot of structures, as you have pointed out, that have emerged, that have been built, rebuilt, refined, some abandoned, some improved, that can be used, including many, very, very promising innovations that are out there. Secondly, the concept of blended financing, or rather cheap money, if you will, is one that needs to be used very carefully. And one has to be careful, because not only can one distort markets, one can put one's money into the wrong place, one can signal this is a company that's not worth commercial money. One has to be kind of very careful also in time limits and how to do this. And I mean, one of my jobs in the past was running IFC's Sustainability Business Innovator 10 years ago for 5 years, and so we developed some very interesting tools for avoiding that. So one has to be careful to send the right signals as one invests, and I'm glad to hear that there will be this programmatic approach to thinking this through. But lastly, and this is where I actually think this goes across all kicks, possibly more on the climate kick side, because we have developed some tools and a real approach for doing this, is the picking of the innovations that goes beyond the individual innovation, but it looks at the interplay between an innovation and how much it will be able not just to grow and make money, but to flip how we all work and operate. That's, in my view, one of the most interesting perspectives that you, with the programmatic approach, are going to pursue. Because we're not just looking for individual winners. We're looking for winners who change the way we work, we live, we aspire, and we grow.
I think you want to react to that, Jean-David. Yeah. There you go.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, very quickly, 2 things. First, on what you said, Elena, that I fully share. You know, I was sharing this in another session yesterday, where we were discussing about innovative ecosystem in Europe. Let's imagine 2 seconds that indeed the EIC objective is successful. the EIC has not the purpose to substitute indeed to the private sector. Not at all. The idea is to tackle a very particular segment for a certain period of time, expecting then afterwards, indeed, the private sector will jump in. And so let's imagine it works. Let's imagine that indeed we are creating a wonderful pipeline of startups that are growing up very quickly. But with this, you are not solving another problem, which is later in the scheme, and which is the one where, in fact, at a certain level of their development, a number of companies which are mature, which have assets, which normally should be supported by a number of private investors, have a lot of difficulties to find, in fact, investors ready to provide big tickets. But when I'm talking about big tickets, I'm not talking about several 10 million euro, I'm talking about beyond 100 million euros. The worst things possible would be that we are not tackling this other problem on the innovation ecosystem in Europe, because what would do the result is that we will prepare a wonderful pipeline for foreign investors with public money. So we have to be very careful on this. And this, of course, cannot be solved by the EIC. This is something that we should discuss, in particular in the context of the successor of the Juncker plan in the InvestEU program, because there we should see what could be done, not only with EU money, but also with the involvement of other key actors at national level, publicly speaking, but also a number of key actors such as insurances, large corporate, and so on, because you have there a problem of culture in comparison with the US in terms of investments. This is my first comment. The second one, on what you said, that I also fully share, is that we should absolutely not create the condition of a crowding out. And this is the reason why the way we are designing our intervention is, first of all, when we have identified potential promising enterprise, to search for private investors. So we will commit ourselves to go in, but we will not necessarily go into the capital of the company if a private investor is ready to go in. So the awareness making of the potential of a number of companies that we will select or that you could identify on your side is, for me, the first objective that we have to reach first. Second, in the discussion that we have up to now with a number of investors in the VC world, but also in other areas, is that what we see emerging is certainly a lot of cases of co-investment. So where indeed the fact that we will invest and that we will appear as a kind of a patient capital anchor investor is de-risking, in addition to the grant, the investments that the private investment fund will do. And this is something where I think that we have a lot of potential, and on which we should also see, on the basis of your experience and on the basis of a number of experience that you have also, for example, in InnoEnergy in this case, we should also cooperate on our side.
Thank you, Jean-David. Before we have now some question from the audience, if you just hold on 1 second, because I would like Kurt to quickly react on the question of crowding out, because that's an issue you must face also, which what you presented, your Venture Center of Excellence, which is exactly a similar instrument where there's already a basis for cooperation. So if you could briefly comment on that, and then we take the question.
Yeah, indeed, it's really important on the one hand for our startups to attract capital and to attract investors. On the other hand, we have to make sure that basically we strengthen our European footprint and not the international footprint. On the other hand, we also have to be open, so we can't just build up walls. That's definitely, it's happening right now in some cases, but we don't want to contribute to pulling up walls. And that's indeed a strategic discussion that we have all the time. How much Do we want to keep our entrepreneurs in Europe, also keep the investments in Europe? But how much do we have to be open to also support them internationalizing? And it's not only attracting the global markets, it's also getting access and getting that footprint in that financial world. So that's both. But still, I wanted to mention one point. We had our top startups in the media event organized by EIT in 2017, all EIT Health startups. And the Forbes magazine journalist asked them, what's the most important thing for you? And they basically told us, and that, for me it was surprising, that money and financing and investments was only on number 3. Number 1 was access to the stakeholders, access to the network, and number 2 was access to expertise, to domain-specific expertise like regulatory affairs and reimbursement. And that's so important because startups in healthcare, but also in the other KICS domains, that's always some kind of niche markets. It's never a mass or consumer markets. It's always kind of a niche market, and in order to really have a growth potential, you have to be active European. You can't do that in your own region. You always have to go European or even global.
Okay, thank you very much, Kurt. We come back 1 second, but I think we'll now take the question from the audience or the comment you have.
Hello.
If you could introduce yourself
Yeah,
first.
my name is Joris van Vinkoy. I live in the same city as Bieke. I'm an entrepreneur, basically in e-health and cannabis-based medicines. It was very special to be in the room with Tavi. I feel the second unicorn is not so far away. I'm quite sure. But I have 2 questions. One to Kurt. Is it just possible to jump on the EIP platform and start from there? Or do you need to have special requirements, following different courses, being selected by the, I don't know what kind of guys? That's one question. And second question, can we see you guys as a consultant when it's going about financing, or do we have to bring our own consultant, not our CFO, but our own consultants with us to talk with you, or is it possible to talk on an entrepreneur level with you guys when it's going about financing?
I propose, Kurt, you answer both questions.
I answer very quickly. So first, the portfolio is pretty large. So I won't be able to explain the full portfolio. And I also would not like you to just go on the website and identify the programs that you would like to join. We actually have in every region in Europe, we have our offices. And there I have team members. And similar for all KICS, we have a business creation manager there that will do a proper assessment together with you. So with every startup that is interested, they do an individual assessment. And they will identify the programs that you would join. They will tell you the requirements to fulfill. And it's no problem. You definitely can join a program. The question is which one you're ready. And of course, in some you have to be selected by a jury or you have to be selected by a selection committee. That's number 1, but completely free. You can access from all over Europe, even from UK. But in your case, Belgium, I can put you in touch with the Belgian business creation manager. Second question regarding finance topics. Of course, we will also support you which instruments would be the most important one. And that's actually why the fast track to EIC is also so important, because that's an essential element. A high percentage of our startups basically takes use of the SME instrument, or took in the past use of the SME instruments. But all the other ones, we will guide you to the right ones, and we will take care that you find the right instruments. And if you look for specific investors, we also can connect you to the big VCs, specifically in biotech, medtech, and digital health.
I think your first question was specifically on the crowdfunding platform, right? No, generally. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yes, here, gentleman, second row.
I have Andre comments from Procter & Gamble. I have a question, having experienced interaction with EIT and EIC before. I think the power of the EIC is that it's topic agnostic, because innovation always happens in an unexpected area. And so that's the power there. In the EIT, what I found is that the topics were chosen on something which is hot, coming from another region, and you set up an EIT, sorry to put it bluntly, an EIT topic. And the question is, are there plans to be more open, that you get in domains before they're kind of established, and so that there is a broader input from innovations which are not necessarily highly tech related?
Okay, so I may start to answer that and then complement by Lena. The topics for the EIT, so the topics of KICS, the topic of climate change, sustainable energy, are given by the European Union. So these are top priority projects, the major societal challenges. They are not bottom-up selected by the EIT. What is bottom-up is then where the individual innovation communities put their focus, where they see the biggest innovation potential. And maybe Elena could give one example how that works in practice.
I think that, we are basically designed for impact, and each of us have a kind of challenge. In our case, everything that we do have a final objective, which is decarbonization, affordability, and to assure that everybody here has the supply guarantee. So everything, and that is why our indicators, there is a part, and we are also innovative on that we have impact indicators. So we measure to what extent we are reducing the cost of energy, to what extent we are giving access to energy to more people, and we measure these kind of things, which are the final things. The only thing is that we have economic instruments in order to achieve it. These topics, at least also in the energy, I am not an engineer, I am not coming from the energy field, and I'm working here. And this is just an example because these kind of innovations are systemic. And it is not only, not only we measure the technology, the TRL famous, we are measuring the consumer readiness level, the society readiness level. And for that, we are having anthropologists, sociologists working together, which is quite difficult at the very first beginning, with people coming from technology. So I think that this is also a kind of innovative of the approach that we are taking, that it is not only about technology. We are looking for business models. Many of the innovations are business models. So this kind of shoe that we work, the way we work, that is the fantastic thing.
Thank you very much, Elena. I was giving the signal we have to wrap up, but you can come directly to the panel members afterwards. I would like not to make a conclusion, but actually give the last word to Bike and Tavi, because they are the innovators which we are actually talking about, and that's really what matters. And hear their takeaway, whether we are on the right track as EIT, as EIC, to give you what you need to become a success. So if we could have a very short answer from both of you, with that we will conclude the session. Thank you.
I think we absolutely have, and that we need to be proud of Europe. I think it's great that EIT Health and EIC will make further connections. We have an excellent infrastructure. We have excellent access to human capital. And yes, we have challenges of different local markets, but these challenges can be countered and we can make unique products for unique markets and thereby scale on a different pathway.
One quick comment regarding unlocking private financing, what Jean-David mentioned. And in Skeleton Technologies case, it's very interesting that if you look at our investors, when firstly UpInvest, a private equity house who doesn't usually do venture capital investments, when Harju elect a Nasdaq Tallinn listed extremely conservative company who has no debt and no venture investments, and when we have one of the largest investment funds from Malaysia, and part of that success has actually been EIT InnoEnergy, giving the comfort in terms of the technology and customers. So it's already happening that these kind of pools of capital have been unlocked. But last but not least, I thought about the role of EIT and InnoEnergy specifically. And one company came to mind, Amazon Web Services. And why Amazon Web Services? Because if you look at startups in the internet era in the end of 90s, when the main problem was servers, how to get online, it was extremely expensive and fragmented. So my firm belief is that EIT can do the same for deep tech, what maybe Amazon Web Services did to internet companies. Yes.
Thank you, Tavi. Fantastic last words, so I don't want to add anything. Thank you for coming to the session, and please feel free to continue the discussion afterwards. Thank you.